who already knows all of this information. Thank you for coming at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, we're good? Hi. Thank you for being here so early in the morning. This is a fantastic turnout. I'm Xerox Joshua, Executive Steward of Partnerships and Ecosystem at Opolis, Merch Steward of Eat Denver, and Treasurer of SporkDAO. And I would like to talk about gamification of utility building public goods, because one of the things that we struggle with in the space is funding public goods and getting people excited about funding public goods. The second that you label something a public good, you lose that like X factor of wild speculation. People are like, oh, this is for charity. It's probably not going to go up. And so they don't invest. And so it's like this flywheel of keeping it on the ground. But in gamification, there's two different types that we think about. There's the micro and then there's the macro. So on the micro level, it's like those dopamine hits. And this is what most people think of. Where you're like, let's design the UI UX so that people are like, oh yeah, I want likes on my tweets, or you're encouraging people to continue to interact with the app. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. Getting POAPs. This is another one on the micro scale, but it could be on the macro when they're like, oh yeah, for every POAP you have, you're going to get like an ETH or something. That'd be like a macro incentive. I don't think that's especially since POAPs have been farmed like crazy. Like loyalty points at airlines. This is probably not the right room to ask this in, but do you guys use cash ever? Mm-hmm. I don't use cash ever, because cash, $1 is worth $1. But when you use a credit card, it's 1%, 2% back. Some credit cards are like 1% back in Bitcoin. And so the $1 is not worth $1 anymore. It's worth $1 plus. And that could be up to like 10% depending on what you're buying and where. But the macro in the gamification is like game design incentives. For example, at Opolis, we did our Series Seed 2 round last year. It was like $5.5 million. $0 of voting equity was sold during that round. So this is like the macro of trying to keep incentives aligned. Positive sum games instead of zero sum games, and then that leads to community ownership. So I mentioned Opolis, and this is where I work. So this is the case study that I was going to do. And I'm going to try to wrap this up quickly because it's a workshop, and I'd rather have it be more of a roundtable discussion than me giving the same talk that I've given 1,000 times. So we'll do our case study with Emily. Emily's a software developer who's got 6 years of experience. She's an independent. California, spends a lot of money on a bunch of different softwares, accounting, buys private health insurance on the exchange with no bulk discount, has a bunch of different 401ks. Everything's kind of a mess. And the time that it takes her to keep track of her financial life is time that she's not spending either developing her skills as a software developer, finding new clients, or actually working on the things that she wants to be working on. And then enter Opolis. This is an employment cooperative where we help her wrap herself into an LLC, kind of streamline all of these different things into one dashboard that is expanding in utility. And so now she has this one-stop shop for her entire employment life. So all of these different invoices funnel into one LLC. We invoice that LLC for whatever she tells us she wants her paycheck to be. We pay Social Security, Medicare, workers' comp, unemployment, the whole nine of all these different taxes. She doesn't have to pay quarterlies anymore because it's coming off of her W-2 paychecks. And this gives her more time to be able to actually focus on her clients and extend. She also can process crypto payroll. So what does this mean for Emily? This slide comes from NFT NYC, where we were talking about all of the things that I just described represented as actual like NFTs. So these could be verifiable income. It's verifiable a lot of different things. So she can take this W-2 instead of a freelancer where the bank is like, you're a very risky person to lend to, even though she has 6 years of relatively solid income, right? But now it's, oh, you have one paycheck? Okay, now I'm going to give you whatever you want. It's a really weird incentive structure. And this, we said it, employment and benefits. Payroll is the killer app. So the way that we get to mass adoption is by, if we want people to spend crypto, we have to remove a step and actually pay them in it. So there's not like an additional transaction to try to get into crypto. And so through this way, we're both an on-ramp and an off-ramp. We don't have to get it. Does anyone want to know how this works, or can I skip over this? Is anyone curious? Okay. All right, so here's the game design. Because, and this was kind of my point, this is incredibly boring stuff, right? It's okay, you can say it. I get very bored even talking about it. But the point is that it's incredibly important, and people kind of undervalue, their eyes gloss over, and for the people at home, this is exactly what happened to the audience here. What we've done is try to incentivize people to want to buy into the system. We have a concept called payroll mining, by which we pay you to pay yourself, essentially, with the work token. So every time the payroll company or the payroll processing grows by 10% in volume. So let's say on July 1st, we ran $1 million in payroll, and then the third Friday, which would be the 15th, we ran 1.1 million. That'd be 10% growth. We would mint 5 million work tokens. 30% go to the employee members who run their payroll, which is a few people in this room. 30% goes to the person who referred that individual. So what we've done here is we've encouraged both the person in the DAO contributor, to run their payroll through us, but we've also encouraged the DAO to refer their contributors so that they stay in the ecosystem. And when Emily has this stable setup, she's more likely to stay in the DAO longer because she's not looking for, oh, where am I going to get my health insurance? And then 20% goes into the staking contract and stuff. This is the visual representation of the thing I just said. And then eventually we'll get to the micro stuff where we build this all into your dashboard. Yeah, we don't need to talk about this either. Okay, so three great examples that I want to point to before we get into the discussion is the gig economy. They've taken something that is already kind of exciting, yield farm, and they've added a public goods component to it, whereby a percentage of what you're putting in is being automatically given to good causes, charities, other things that sign up through Giveth. Moonshot Bots and Rainbow Rolls here are two examples of things that kind of worked to a degree, but then stopped. And then this is kind of one of the things that I wanted to talk about with the group. So the Moonshot Bots, if you're not familiar with, was a kind of Gitcoin DAO offshoot thing where they sold NFTs on a bonding curve. And it was great gamification for the first people who bought into the system because they were buying it at fractions of an ETH. And then it kept getting more expensive, more expensive, more expensive. Some people who were really friendly to the ecosystem were like, yeah, I'll buy one at 5 ETH. And the current one hasn't been minted in a long time, I think 4 or 5 months. And I went to go grab a screenshot and the website was actually down. Which I think they're fixing, but it's 30 ETH to mint the next one, but the floor price on OpenSea is 2 something, 3 something. So what's the game mechanic is kind of broken, that the flywheel, we fell off of it. And Rainbow Rolls was we kind of under anticipated how much. Okay, so we came from the public goods side and we're going to raise tons of money for charity because lots of people are raising. You just have anybody who has an NFT project, it's just minting out. We underestimated how much of that was garbage marketing and shilly mechanics. And we're no, it's for public goods. People are going to buy it. and we minted like 800 something out of the 10,000. And so we were able to give away about 100. We raised about 100 ETH. We were able to give away about 80, which at the top was like, I don't know, $250,000, $300,000, depending on when people sold it. We gave it to a RIP Medical Debt. We gave them like 20 ETH that they sold for $91,000. And then they used their little flywheel thing, and they were able to waive $7.35 million of medical debt. So it worked for them. But why don't these things mint anymore? And this is kind of the fundamental question that I want to talk about. Are there any questions about stuff I said before we like dive into that?
Really quick, does the DAO have to be a legal entity to get those work rewards? Does the DAO have to be a legal entity to get the work rewards?
Does a DAO need to be a legal entity to earn work rewards?
Yeah, you were saying if DAOs refer their members.
Yes. I was repeating the question. Okay. No, they don't. But they do need to join the coalition, and joining the coalition is incredibly expensive. It is $20. It's like a legal barrier to becoming a member of a cooperative, and like it has to be a nominal amount. And it's very similar to REI. I think they charge $30 for membership. Is that right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So ours is it's cheaper to join our cooperative than REI, but you're not going to get anything back if you buy skis. So it's $20. A bunch of DAOs actually in this room are represented. Giveth, the Token Engineering Commons, Common Stack, all members. Do you guys have coalition members there? No? Yeah, you're a coalition member? Cool. The reason for this is because you have to. We don't sell the work token. The work token has never been sold. The only way to earn it is by providing some sort of value to the cooperative. And to do that, you have to be a member of the cooperative, and that way, we're using the work token as a unit of account for the cooperative. But no, you don't need to be a legal entity. Okay, cool. So, what do you guys want to talk about? Not all at once.
You were talking about there being members of the coalition.
Yeah.
You were talking about people being members of the coalition.
Yeah.
Like, what are some examples of like groups that maybe are, or groups that might want to be?
Sure. Yeah. So right now we are for employee members, we're primarily U.S. based. So if any DAO has a contributor or an employee, even if they're like part-time, they only give you like an hour or two or something, it's worth joining the coalition, or at least referring your contributor to Opolis. And examples of coalition members. So the first like major one we had was Badger DAO. They onboarded most of their American-based contributors. They run their payroll through us from their salaries. It's like USDC that these guys get paid. And then they just run that USDC through us. And then Badger DAO actually invested as well. Dapix was a company that like dissolved and became the FIO protocol, and the contributors to FIO joined. We also helped Shapeshift with their kind of dissolution, and I think a majority of their US-based developers joined us. I think somewhere between like 50 and 70. We don't ask specifically where people come from, and a lot of people are anonymous, and so we try to we do a really good job of not doxing people, so I don't know the exact number. Gitcoin DAO, MakerDAO. I'm gonna piss some people off by not remembering all of them, but there's a lot. And we do partner with a decent number of like European DAOs that'll have like one or two contributors in the US, like doing good. and it's worth it for them because one, they get a stable contributor who's able to provide employment benefits for their family, but then two, like every work token that contributor is making, doing good is also making for their treasury. And so while the work token is not particularly worth anything right now because there's no demand for it, eventually when we hit somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 members, well, let's start with 1,000. When we hit 1,000 members, it becomes a governance token. You'll be able to vote with it on things like, should we add an additional healthcare plan? So right now we have 2 bronze, a silver, and a gold, but some people want a platinum plan. Some people want an even cheaper one, like just a basic catastrophe. That'll take members being like, hey, I want that. And because they are the owners of the cooperative, they can make that decision. I think that answered the whole question. Cool.
So the onboarding has it's set up for like non-crypto native, it facilitates normies.
Yeah.
Is there much traction with that? Do you have many non-crypto members?
Yes. So funny enough, the attempt to make it easier for normies to onboard has made it significantly harder for crypto natives. We use something called magic, and magic links are like you put in an email address and then it emails you a link. You click on it, and this process generates a like public-private key. It's a delegated private key. So they're kind of managing that for you, but it's so that you can just log in with an email address without realizing you're touching crypto. And we have real estate agents, lawyers, doctors who use that and like really don't want to use crypto. The problem with this is the magic link. Like if people don't go in and switch it over to MetaMask, it kind of makes it difficult to track and like interact with Discord and these kinds of things for community building. And like figuring out, because when you use the magic links, we provide free gas. So we basically just top up all these accounts with Matic. The problem is that like Polygon will go through these like weird spurts of if too many people try to use it at once. Well, that's not weird. That's blockchains in general. Too many people try to use it at once and then it doesn't work. And then they'll get an error that's like, this isn't working. And we don't say, oh, it's probably a gas thing. And so we're like, just try again in a few minutes and it'll go through, or we have to send more Matic. But like if you do it on your own MetaMask, you can like, it'll tell you like, you need to up the gas. And it's a cleaner user experience if you do the first step and then you move away to your own. But it's not incentivized because we're paying for your gas, but it's still like, it's Polygon. It's like 0.0001 cents per transaction or something. I think that answered your question. There is traction among like normally and like the website. So here's the problem we had with marketing, because when you mention crypto, if you don't mention crypto, it becomes more attractive because they're like, oh, this is like a regular thing. I can use this. But then people in Web3 like don't know it's for them. And they're like, oh, this is just some freelancer thing. And then you put crypto on and you're like, no, like this is for you. We designed this, like our founder, John Paller, is also the founder of Eat Denver, like deep roots in what we're trying to build here. And then like we'll meet, this happened the other day, like a real estate agent was like, I don't do crypto. It's like you can do 100% of the thing without touching crypto. But how do you thread that needle? That's an interesting one. Yes, it is a big deal. And I realize that all of this is very US based, but we're in the process of expanding.
Have you thought of marketing as two separate things, even though it's the same thing? Like, oh, this is the crypto one. This is the not crypto one. And it's
Yes,
the same thing.
it has come up. I don't know where we are with it. What would you call the other one? Would you change the names? I don't know.
It seems like almost the pain point there is that we need to restructure people's like idea of what being in crypto means, rather than cater to people that don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah. This is like part of the narrative, and I don't know if it's a perfect narrative, but it's the one that I like pulling on, that like crypto and Web3 aren't synonyms, and we shouldn't use them that way. It's no longer like both of them have negative connotations now because of how badly they've been misused, and it's like we need to figure out like what is the word that we can use to describe this like new economy that we're building with proper game incentives. That doesn't like scare people away and they're like, no, I don't like the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I don't want to do this crypto stuff. And it's like, what about anything that I just described has anything to do with like, I don't know, like NFT projects? But like we all get lumped into the same bucket. Did any of you go to like NFT NYC, for example? Yeah, it's like a totally different vibe, right? You would never know that we were in the same industry, yet we're all categorized as like 0.0001% in this like same industry. It's the same as like how Intel and Netflix are also considered the same industry. So this is not new to our industry. It's like in what world are these just both tech companies? They're not even remotely the same. Cool. So I guess what it boils down to in trying to figure out how do we improve funding for public goods or the commons, or recreating society in the way that we'd like to, is trying to not like change human nature, because humans are always going to be selfish individuals. How do we take the thing that makes you a selfish individual and make that part of, or align it with what the community's goals are? And this is kind of a half-baked thought that I've been trying to figure out. So it's definitely the best time to present it on air. But like you guys are familiar with like Marx and like Karl Marx and socialism, and talks about like workers of the world unite in the like seizing the means of production. And one of the things I keep thinking about is like socialists kind of have it wrong, where they're like, yeah, the government's going to take this stuff from rich people and we're going to give it to the workers or whatever, right? And correct me if that is a wrong assumption about what socialism proclaims. But what we've done with blockchain technology is make it so that through market-based incentives, consumers are taking back the means of production. Does that make sense? Like we own the companies that we are patronizing because we are engaging with them. So like you run your payroll through Opolis, you're an owner of the company. It's just a game design incentive. We're not taking anything from anybody. We're just building from the ground up. And it's like, it's an interesting, yeah.
I don't proclaim to be a socialist, but that was co-opted by the government. I don't think anything in Karl Marx's like original ideas was like, yes, the government should do this. It was, we should do this. And that is like reflected in co-op structures. Like
yeah.
That's sort of the modern iteration of that, which is really fucking cool.
Yeah, like taxonomy is important. Stuff gets co-opted. It's why like people think Bored Ape Yacht Club is Web3. It's like,
It also seems that, excuse me, that like blockchain technology kind of serves that purpose better than anything that we've generated so far, because the idea of seizing the means of production and such was based on actual physical goods and the machines that created those goods. Whereas now we are the machines that are creating the goods digitally, and we don't have to like take any resources from anything else to do it except for electricity and CPUs.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of a great, one of our partners, Brain Trust, is like, there's the Web 2 model of freelancer work, which is like Upwork and like Fiverr and like TopTal. And you sign up, you get vetted, you're like, a verified coder, right? And then they farm you out as a staffing company and take a giant chunk of your earnings. and you don't really get anything in return for that except for the ability to continue working on contracts, right? But like with Brain Trust, it's a similar model, except for you are also getting a token that is ownership in the community. And it's the same, like one by one, individual pieces of society are going to get picked away until, and this is what Griff, who was here earlier, likes to talk about the things that we're doing, or what we'd like to be building with this infrastructure is to one by one take away pieces of government infrastructure. Like government's big, and individual, like it probably doesn't need to be providing all of the services it's providing, but those services do need to be provided, but by whom? And like we as a community could do it by using smart contracts, and like individual pieces of public goods that need to be funded, we can fund through grants or through DeFi game design, and we can just make government smaller, not by like Republicans breaking the government and saying, hey, look, it was broken, but like actually by like providing public services, but not by collecting too many taxes and then putting it back out, but just by like taking, I don't know, a percentage of my DeFi gains and like funneling it to a smart contract that like a street sweeper can just like claim and be like, yeah, I did this today or something. You know what I mean? But this is like step one. And then step two, like you get an airline. Or how many of you like your cell phone telecoms provider?
I'm in the minority.
Who do you have that you and you like them as you're not going to leave T-Mobile?
13 years.
So I've been with AT&T longer, but like if a company came along and was like, if you pay your bill on time, I'm going to give you equity in the company, I'd be like, all right, fuck off, AT&T. I'm out of here. It just the game design. Like I don't want Hilton points, but like the first hotel or like series of maybe it's a decentralized Airbnb that's like if you rent a place, you stay, and you get a positive review, and like you didn't damage the place, and there weren't problems, you're gonna get equity in this decentralized system. I'd be like, all right, I'm never staying in a hotel again. That's way better than points or status. Ownership. Okay, cool. How much time do we have left? 7 minutes. 7 minutes. Cool. All right.
You can stop if you want. It's up to you. You have until 7 minutes.
Okay. I don't know. Do you guys want to keep talking about stuff? Yeah, we can just cut it here. Do I have anything else? Yeah. Yeah. So if you're interested in Opolis, or you'd like to become a coalition member, commons.opolis.co. My DMs are open on all of the platforms. So yeah, cool.